It's Saturday. It's August 26th, 2023. I'm watching the CBS News, the Channel 2 in New York. They have on this story that I've been following. I don't really have, again, I don't have community or people to speak with, and I'm not in the profession, but I have noticed and documented in my In God We Trust series, um, about my local station, district zone, whatever, has these mail carriers of all different types and sorts. Um, they don't look like, if this is a pictorial of Federal Reserve, and if this is the pictorial of the United States of America for the U.S. Post, um, they don't look familial. Like Queens from Aunt Virginia, um, and my grandma, um, they lived in Flushing. Flushing looked a very specific way. I mean, it was a different time. I don't know what happened. I don't know, like, this sudden change that happened there. Um, I'm starting now to really, whatever. But of course, I'm looking at astronauts. So, like, what space mechanics and aeronautics and um, anything space level would be. This would be my number one, because they cloaked me in growing up Glen with one N and going to St. John's at the Red Cross. Um, and it's still the In God We Trust, and this is what the U.S. Treasury looks like. So I'm looking, they chose two sections. One, Astoria, where I last went to St. John. Well, actually, it's where I graduated high school, in St. John's Prep in Astoria. They mentioned they're having theft of mail. And then they also looped in this time Bayside. Like, actually somebody from the neighborhood. I've never seen this man before, but he looks more familial. Um, and he's saying that he's having trouble with his mail. So now I know I'm not the only one. I don't know if I'm missing mail because it never got here. I don't know who would be sending me anything. Um, but um, but there's this ongoing reporting, and they're using this reporter called L. McLogan, and her territory is Queens, which they mark on this map. I've been reporting to Dear In God We Trust, knowing that my borough has some form of management. The mayor in New York City is some other form of management. I really don't know who installed this management. And I don't know, again, like at Star Trek level, with sunlight being where it is at the moment, what exactly is going on. Because I also, again, put in this lead to the U.S. Army and the National Guard trying to apply for a intelligence position, and it came back with some other version of like a US, but, like, again, I don't know if it's just an employee under some kind of treaty. I don't really know. But why would my recruiting information go there rather than to a familial member of, like, Godspeed and In God We Trust? Well, I mean, again, I know I'm not being handled correctly, but I don't know, like, how to get to the level that protect persons like myself. So I'm watching this very carefully, because it mentions this U.S. Post, like, district zone area within Bayside U.S. Post, which is where we are for residential mail. Knowing that the drivers and the on foot carriers, they change a lot. Like, I've had in other situations where the mail was always the same person for a long time. Um, but here, there's just a big turnover. I don't know why.
Well, we've been hearing from viewers about some mail theft in Queens, and this is a story we've been following after someone took a letter from those green mailboxes in Astoria.
And since our story first aired, we've heard from more viewers dealing with the same problem, and CBS 2's Elle McLogan covers Queens for us and takes us to Bayside.
On a Friday afternoon in Bayside, Tim Dillon was checking the Postal Service website for tracking updates on an incoming delivery.
I was expecting my new enhanced New York State driver's license.
The mail never came.
I approached the letter carrier the following day, and sheepishly he said the mail was stolen out of the green mailbox. It has been an issue here in Bayside, Douglaston,
and in Astoria, where we first brought you the story of repeated daytime mail theft caught on video on the same corner. Perpetrators appear to use a key to access the green relay boxes used by mail carriers for...
Now, he mentions Douglaston. Douglaston is where I go to Zion in order for the Red Cross at that post. So I just want to mention that's the same Douglaston that I go to weekly. I mean, Monday through Friday, I'm here in Bayside, but then I go to Douglaston on Sunday to Red Cross with the whichever in Sunday service.
For storage, neighbors in Astoria and Bayside say USPS never gave word their mail was gone.
Forget being offered, fraud protection. We're not even being told about this.
In light of widespread reports of stolen mail in the area, officials and postal law enforcement gathered in Maspeth to share mail theft prevention tips with...
Now,
USPS never gave word their mail was gone.
Forget being offered, fraud protection. We're not even being told about this.
In light of widespread reports of stolen mail in the area, officials and postal law enforcement gathered in Maspeth to...
Now, I use this because here it says federal agent and it says United States Postal Inspection Service. Same US that has a pictogram, same US that has a federal reserve note system with pictogram and a US Treasury. So I just wanted, I held this up and I took a photo of it to make sure that I'm linking where my feet are, that nothing's changed in the monetary system and the currency system and where they're reporting in this digital age to where my receiving the digital message is. Same one where I have a patterned flag of this. That's what hangs outside on the buildings, at the banks, at the library, outside the library, at the school. Well, it's supposed to be at the schools, at the parks. They all wave that patterned flag.
To share mail theft prevention tips with the public.
We recommend dropping it off directly to the post office.
Residents we spoke with wonder why it should fall on them to safeguard their own mail. I asked what USPS's policy is for notifying the neighborhood when mail gets taken. The postal inspector said it's the other way around.
We're relying on the public to tell us when they don't receive something.
Now, I look to him like he is my federal agent, like superhero, like he's the Superman of like Bayside, Douglaston, wherever in Queens. He's the only one I've ever seen from that they put up here from postal inspections with federal agent. I mean, again, I don't know his heraldry, but he looks awfully close at first visual. If I like profiling, there's a reason. There's a lot of mail theft going on. There's key thefts, and they go on in the story.
Postal Service says it is installing secure blue boxes boxes nationwide and replacing antiquated arrow keys used to open green boxes. Employees who don't want to appear on camera say mail carriers are being offered bribes for their keys in the amount of tens of thousands of dollars.
Our mail carriers, they're as honest as the day is long.
Those who don't accept a bribe risk losing their keys by force. More than 400 mail carriers were robbed in 2022, according to a USPS report. Meanwhile, there were more than 300 robberies just in the first half of this year. Do you have a timeline yet on when the arrow keys might be phased out?
I don't.
Victims hope policies change soon.
Let's get down to the bottom of this.
In Queens, Elle McLogan, CBS 2 News.
And Elle is our community reporter and is continuing to pursue viewer tips of mail theft. So if you have one to share, you can send an email to queenstip@cbs.com.
Well, the MC.
Now, the hard thing about mail theft is I'm not in contact with anybody. I'm not expecting any mail. I don't even know what may have been stalled or stopped, or I mean, like, how does one even know? But what else is interesting is, again, at archery, at like Robin Hood Day Camp or West Hills Day Camp. I went to several different day camps where that really, well, I've had a few swim instructors, and so there, one of the instructors taught me how to shoot bow and arrow. This was not a skill that, like, the schools, it was not a learning institution, it wasn't offered, it was only offered at those key opportune points of whomever it was and whatever he was doing at my camp and teaching how to shoot arrows. It seems really critical and crucial of a person in quantum entanglement, since whatever happened thereafter, but in the beginning years, it seems really, really important, having met some people that I did not know who these great character references were or are, but they appeared, they knew who they were, and it's almost like Bambi in the forest, and the hunter sneaks up on Bambi, and this particular hunter is not looking for whatever, but again, it's almost that way. So I'm going to pause this for a second, and I'm going to go back, because on all of the Star Trek franchise, they have, it almost looks like an arrowhead on their uniforms. So that seems really, really important at US Post, with some of the chair changes that I don't know how many there's been that they have gone unrecognized, but under the US umbrella of monetary, it seems critically important. I also watched Oppenheimer yesterday. I went in the local area in order to view it. I wasn't going to see it, and then I said, you know what? It's a piece of history, and I want to know this piece of history and how it's spoken of. So it was eye-opening in the storyline, if nothing else, because here you have like a Brotherhood scientist, and who the government officials are, what they look like the real ones, and how they pursued their own scientist with these almost international words like communist or socialist or Nazi or Russian or German, because we were American. And then to see what is now, like, then they all looked like the Brotherhood of Man, but they took care of their own scientists, like making sure that they weren't trading secrets for nationalistic whatever. But nowadays I'm looking at simple things like what dresses in an NYPD uniform, who has access to intelligence agents that I don't. And I'm like, that doesn't look American. And now I'm looking at a whole lot of different things at a bunch of different industry levels, like sporting's one of them, travel is one of them. And I am wondering at a national secure agent level where my national security is when I'm looking at what's using the US court systems to go after US presidents. Not saying that he's an angel by any stretch of the imagination, however. I don't know the details of what's gone on. And it just seems like there's a lot of hands touching a lot of things. And in the movie Oppenheimer, in the movie realm, at Warner Brothers, Time Warner, they seemed to really have who the government is and was, and like top officials wise, and who the scientists are, in keeping like the front office tight. So this way, the organized criminals are, I guess, whatever, and I don't really know. But I'm noticing that in my local area, there seems to be some problems. But that's, again, what I've been reporting on, to like, In God We Trust. I also saw this movie just recently about Air Force One from 1997. And while it was hard to watch for me, because I'm just like one of these, my face was, because there's a lot of violence that goes on Air Force One, and I'm like, my God, God forbid, and clutching pearls in a type of a way. And then I realized, like, that scenario, when I turn on, like, not this morning in CBS, but like when I put on CBS mornings Monday through Friday, or I go to Channel 7 and I look at their desk persons, their field reporters, I'm just like, it almost looks like a broadcasting takeover of some sort. And the airways are not even clear, and they're not like, I mean, if they started reporting as correspondents for accountability with their original area or territory of origin before they started assimilating with America, if they started reporting with those outside facts before reporting on anything else, like, how would that change the receivership of the information for like the government and the controllers of the monetary and the treasury and the federal and so on and so forth? Because it seems to me, I know there's only one federation, but it seems to me like there is some insidious movement going on underfoot, and I don't quite know how to I don't know how or where to report it properly. Now, on the uniform where they have the arrow, because they talk about arrow keys, they have this man on Star Trek, on the Voyager one with Seven of Nine, under heroes and icons. I have a lesser known, like Robert Goddard, where I come from. Nobody's taught about these things. I did, just like I did with John Glenn, although John Glenn, at least, he makes more sense only because it's on my driving abstract of where my driver's license was. At home was 3 Glen, and then St. John's on Sunday. So that just automatically made more sense for looking to question the nature of my reality. But then I found Where is God? And I found the symbol Goddard, which then I see on Star Trek. I don't know, like, again, if they're character profiling and portraying. Just, again, this is Massachusetts. I believe he goes by Ohio. I know Iowa is significant for my Cliff Notes. West Virginia is important for something else. So there's this whatever and whatever. But congruency and consistency. So that mention of Bayside and the pairing it with Astoria, where I had the St. John's Prep High School graduation diploma, and now here in Bayside, 20 something years later.
Shh. I would never abuse your body. I was trying to get information. Sometimes a glass of wine can loosen the tongue.
One glass. That doesn't excuse the other 8.
Was it that many?
7, you were aware of everything?
And that's where Arrowhead seems really important at ARROW. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. I also saw today, this morning, I put up my discovery of something called the Explorers Club. Josh Gates, the only explorer I've ever seen, or expeditioner. He puts expedition unknown out there. And I've caught several of his whichever's. Today I found one where he's in New York City with the Explorers Club that I had never heard of. Makes sense. And they had on specific points with climbing Mount Everest, going to the Mariana Trench, Trieste, Aronso. They're 199 kilometers away from each other. Like, these are significant engineering feats and expeditions that happened before my arrival. And then they tell of the man, Kippinger, who went, or Kittinger, who went to like the edges, the threshold of space, and he had to have pressurized suit in order to, or bladders put inside his suit to keep his form because of the difference in pressure and changes of gravity. That also, in what I'm experiencing with photons and with interdimensional intelligence and all sorts of things, and then the this tissue expansion and whatever dimensional changes is incredibly significant as well. Being that these are things that I don't have a daily control of, somebody does, and I can tell by the size of where my mother was when I arrived in 1978 to where it is now, and even on my own journey, like these 10-pound, whatever, even consistently exercising, even consistently, I mean, the food's changed, the chemistry's changed, things have changed. People make all sorts of excuses for it, but there's also pressurized and photonic changes in the aerodynamics of space and time. So it's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza, it's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.